Family, where we explore the real stories and hidden truths about love, marriage, and relationships. Today, we're going to have a conversation that's both honest and eye-opening, one that many men need to hear, but often far too late. Cheating rarely begins with a sudden, reckless choice. More often, it starts quietly, with emotional distance, small shifts in behavior and priorities that slowly drift. Long before anything physical happens, a quiet disconnection takes root. And if you're not paying close attention, you might miss the signs until they're impossible to ignore. This video isn't about feeding suspicion or paranoia. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing the early cues with emotional clarity. Because when a woman begins to pull away, her words and actions start telling a different story than the one she may be trying to present. We'll explore 4 key phrases that often signal something deeper is unfolding. Words that can reveal emotional infidelity, manipulation, or even a quiet exit strategy already in motion. This isn't about blame. It's about protecting your peace, your energy, and your emotional well-being. So if you've ever felt like something was off in your relationship, but couldn't quite put your finger on it, this video is for you. Stay with us until the end, because the signs we're about to discuss might be the clarity you need, not confusion, but understanding. Let's begin. He's just a friend. A classic red flag, but one that often starts small, easy to dismiss. Maybe it's a name that comes up a little too often, a laugh that feels just a bit too familiar, or a story where the same man keeps appearing. She smiles and reassures you, he's just a friend. You might want to believe it. You might even tell yourself you're overthinking because you trust her. But beneath those 5 words, there's often a deeper narrative unfolding, one that has less to do with friendship and more to do with emotional positioning. When a woman insists on explaining why another man is nothing to worry about, it's rarely casual. It's rehearsed, strategic. She might make him sound harmless. Maybe he's gay, or already in a relationship, or like a brother. These details aren't meant to reassure you. They're meant to keep him close without raising suspicion. The more effort she puts into defending their connection, the more you should ask yourself, why does this need defending at all? If this man were truly irrelevant, she wouldn't feel the need to justify his presence. But instead, you'll notice patterns, how she brings him up unnecessarily, how her laughter brightens when she reads his text. She might even suggest you meet him, hoping your discomfort will fade if you like him. But it doesn't. Your instincts pick up on how fiercely she protects that bond, sometimes more fiercely than the one she shares with you. The real test comes when you express concern. If she's dismissive, defensive, or even angry, it's not because you're wrong. It's because you're close to a truth she hasn't admitted to herself. A woman who truly loves you will prioritize your emotional safety. She won't demand that you tolerate something that makes you feel insecure. She won't insist on keeping someone around if it's eroding the foundation between you. But when she does the opposite, when she refuses to create distance, invalidates your concerns, or gaslights you into believing you're the problem, it's time to step back and see what's really happening. Emotional boundaries are harder to define than physical ones because there's no clear line to point to. But that doesn't make them any less real. Emotional infidelity doesn't begin with betrayal. It begins with loyalty, quietly shifting elsewhere. You'll notice the signs: texts that come too frequently, laughter at her phone with no explanation, messages deleted before you can ask. Sometimes it's her confiding in him about things she no longer brings to you. This isn't harmless. This isn't friendship. This is emotional intimacy being transferred, one conversation at a time. And the hardest part, she may not even realize she's doing it. Or maybe she does and doesn't want to stop. It's not uncommon for these friendships to evolve into something more once the current relationship ends. Stories like this are everywhere. One man watched his girlfriend defend her closeness with a male friend for years. Every concern was met with irritation or dismissal. Months after their breakup, she was with him. Eventually, they married. The man who was just a friend had been waiting in the wings all along, and she'd kept the door open for him the entire time. This is the uncomfortable truth many men don't want to face. The words, "he's just a friend," aren't always a lie, but they're often incomplete. If she's willing to risk your trust to keep another man in her life, she's not choosing you fully. If she dismisses your concerns instead of addressing them, it's not about love. It's about divided loyalty. And love divided is love weakened. There's a saying that fits here. You don't compete with a friend. You compete with someone she hasn't been honest about. When a woman's emotional energy consistently goes to another man, you're not imagining the shift. You're living in it. A partner who truly values you will make you feel like you're enough. She won't make you feel like there's someone waiting in the background while you're expected to act like everything's normal. Trust isn't built on how often someone tells you don't worry. It's built on their willingness to protect what matters to you, especially when no one's watching. And if she won't protect your heart from the presence of someone who threatens it, then just a friend might be the beginning of a much bigger truth. If you weren't worthy of a heart, there's not a truth in that heart. If you weren't worthy of a truth, you're being insecure, gaslighting and deflecting accountability. There are moments in a relationship when something just doesn't sit right. You notice a shift, a tone in her voice, a hesitation in her answers, a story that doesn't quite add up. You bring it up gently, unsure if you're overthinking. But instead of clarity, you're met with deflection. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're being insecure. You're overreacting. What you thought was a conversation turns into a courtroom, and somehow you're on trial for the very thing you were questioning. This isn't miscommunication, it's a psychological maneuver. When she makes you doubt your instincts or feel guilty for noticing red flags, she's not addressing the issue, she's dodging it. That moment you caught her sitting too close to another man or saw a text that felt off, what you felt was valid, but her response turns the spotlight on your reaction, not her behavior. It's a subtle rewriting of the truth, meant to make you shrink. That's gaslighting. Not always loud or cruel, but always confusing. Sometimes it goes further. You voice concern, and she flips it. Maybe you're the one cheating. Why else would you think that about me? It's not just defense, it's projection. Instead of answering your question, she plants suspicion in your direction. You end up second-guessing yourself, not because you're wrong, but because she's skilled at making you feel like you are. Then come the stories that shift. One day, it was a girls' night. The next, someone mentions a guy being there. She brushes it off. You're reading too much into it, but your gut knows better. These minor contradictions are where the truth leaks out. The inconsistencies aren't always dramatic, but they matter. Because over time, they wear down your confidence in your own perception. You start ignoring the whispers inside you in favor of the explanations she hands you. But you need to remember, your intuition doesn't lie. When something feels off, it usually is. You don't need every detail to align perfectly to trust your instincts. There's a reason you felt the need to ask. There's a reason the answers didn't sit right. Your peace is too valuable to be chipped away by half-truths and blame games. There's a quiet power in standing by what you know, even when someone tries to rewrite the story. As the saying goes, if your spirit is unsettled, there's a reason. And no matter how much she twists the truth, your clarity begins when you stop doubting yourself. I need space. A soft exit strategy when a woman says she needs space. It rarely comes without warning. The words might sound gentle, even thoughtful, as if she's stepping back to work on herself and find clarity. But more often than not, the space she's asking for isn't empty. It's already being filled by someone else. This phrase is one of the most misunderstood exit strategies in modern relationships. It feels like a pause, a chance to reset. But in truth, it's often a carefully phrased way to soften the reality that she's emotionally detaching. What she frames as growth or reflection is usually a doorway not to find herself, but to welcome someone new into her life, without fully letting go of you. Watch her behavior closely. The texts come less often now, and the tone is cooler. Phone calls that once stretched into the night become short and practical. She recognizes the sign furthermore that phone calls that once stretched into the night become short and practical. She avoids physical closeness, not out of stress, but disinterest. She spends more time with new friends, and her energy shifts toward people and places that don't include you. One name might appear more often than before, followed by, "He's just a friend." But you can feel the shift in her words, the absence of emotional intimacy. This is where many men falter. They chase, they beg, they try to prove they're worth staying for. But chasing someone who's already walking away only makes the distance grow. She isn't asking for space to heal the relationship. She's asking for it to test life without you, while keeping the door slightly open, just in case. In her silence and absence, she watches how you respond. The more you reach out, the less she respects your center. The strongest response isn't to argue or explain. It's to honor the space completely. Step back, not out of anger, but self-respect. Let her actions reveal her intent. If she uses that space to build a life without you and grow closer to someone else, then the truth was never in her words. It was in the distance she created. There's wisdom in restraint. A man who can remain grounded while someone drifts away isn't passive. He's powerful. Eventually, she'll realize that the space she asked for became the silence where your presence disappeared. And in that silence, she'll see what she walked away from. Not just a man who loved her, but a man who knew when to stop giving himself to someone who had already let go. You deserve someone better. And there's a moment in some breakups that feels more confusing than heartbreaking. She sits quietly, maybe with a look of regret or practiced calm, and says what sounds like a compliment, but lands like a verdict. You deserve someone better. The words are delivered softly, as if she's doing you a kindness, handing you a truth that should make you feel grateful. But beneath that polished sentence is a quiet unraveling of something already broken. And the real message, the one she's not saying aloud, is far less noble. I've already left. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. When a woman says those words, she's almost always gone. Maybe not physically, not officially, but emotionally, she's no longer in the room with you. The warmth has faded. Her presence has shifted. And something in her tone now carries distance instead of care. You'll notice how conversations grow shorter, how eye contact disappears, how her touch feels more like a habit than a connection. She's already withdrawn, and what you hear now isn't a conversation. It's the closing line. This phrase is one of the cleanest emotional exit strategies she can use. It gives her the moral high ground while protecting her from guilt. Instead of saying, "I've lost interest," or "I've met someone else," she says, "You deserve more." A statement that frames you as the victim of a decision made with compassion, but in truth, she's asking for a smooth exit, one without confrontation, without difficult questions, and without having to explain choices she may not want to admit, especially if she's already emotionally or physically involved with someone else. This tactic works because it flips the emotional script. Suddenly, you're not the one being left, you're being offered freedom. She frames the breakup as a gift to you rather than an escape for her. And it works exceptionally well if you're still trying to make things work, hopeful and unaware of how far gone she is. You may find yourself responding with confusion or even gratitude, not realizing that what's happening is a carefully worded way to shift the emotional labor of the breakup onto your shoulders. Many men make the mistake of trying to fix things at this point. They think maybe she's just tired or confused or needs reassurance, and they offer to do better, to communicate more, to change whatever they believe pushed her away. But when a woman says, "You deserve better," she has already rehearsed her exit internally. She is not asking for solutions. She's asking for closure without the mess. Trying to win her back at this point isn't strength. It's a delay of the inevitable and a slow erosion of your dignity. The right move is counterintuitive but powerful. You let her go without begging, bargaining, or needing the whole story, because the truth is already there in the silence behind her words. She's no longer emotionally invested, and she wants you to make the ending easier for her. Your acceptance isn't a loss. It's self-respect. It's understanding that if someone truly valued you, they wouldn't leave you under the illusion of being helped to heal. They would stay and face the discomfort of working through it. There's an old saying worth remembering. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. In this case, when she tells you you deserve better, don't read it as humility or love. Read it as her way of asking to be released from the role she no longer wants to play. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you stop holding on to someone who has already let go. Healing begins not when you chase closure, but when you choose clarity. And when you choose clarity. And clarity comes when you understand that real love doesn't end with a catchphrase dressed up as compassion. It either fights to stay or it walks away honestly. Anything else is just a carefully worded goodbye. Don't settle for half effort. Cheating at its core is rarely impulsive. It's not something that happens suddenly without warning. It's a gradual unraveling of emotional connection, loyalty, and respect. And as we've seen throughout this video, it often begins with small, seemingly innocent phrases that many men overlook. He's just a friend. You're being insecure. I need space. You deserve someone better. These aren't just words. They're cues. They're signals that something has shifted beneath the surface. When a woman begins to disconnect emotionally, the language she uses changes. Her behavior becomes more guarded, her presence more distant, and her reassurances start to feel hollow. She may not admit it directly, but she tells you what you need to know if you can hear it through her words and actions. This situation is so painful for many men because of the betrayal and the realization that they ignored their intuition for far too long. They questioned their gut feelings, tried to be more understanding, gave more chances, and made excuses for what they felt to be true. But emotional infidelity and the patterns that lead to it rarely correct themselves. Once respect is lost and another person begins to occupy emotional space in her heart, the relationship you once had is no longer the same. This isn't about blaming women, nor is it about encouraging distrust. It's about learning to listen to what's unsaid. A woman still emotionally committed will do everything she can to protect the relationship, honor your boundaries, prioritize your feelings, and communicate openly. But when she begins to use language that deflects accountability, manipulates through guilt, or seeks space without clarity, it's often a sign that she's already started emotionally exiting the relationship. And that is a sign that she is already starting emotionally exiting the relationship. And here's the truth. You are not responsible for convincing someone to stay. You are not meant to beg for love, loyalty, or clarity when a person shows signs of detachment, especially in vague phrases or defensive behavior. It's not your job to decode or fix it. Observing, assessing, and protecting your emotional well-being is your job. Staying in a one-sided relationship, hoping that love alone will bring them back, only prolongs your pain and delays your healing. So you understand how to stay in your lane and to protect yourself from feeling. A man of value does not chase half-hearted affection. He does not tolerate ambiguity nor allow himself to be strung along by someone emotionally elsewhere. Instead, he moves with quiet confidence, walking away from what no longer serves him and making space for peace, clarity, and growth. That is strength, not anger, not revenge, but the ability to detach with dignity. So as we close, ask yourself honestly, are you accepting less than what you deserve? Are you hoping her words mean something different than they truly imply? And if so,